We're talking with Cecil Hurt of the Tuscaloosa News and Tidesports.com. Talk about an arena rocking. That should be Coleman Coliseum tonight, Cecil, with the Auburn Tigers, the fourth-ranked team in the country, taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide. 8 p.m. tip-off there at Coleman. I saw where you tweeted earlier, Auburn a 2-point road favorite. Did that number kind of fall about where you expected, given the teams here? Yeah.
Just about indicates that, I mean, 2's not a toss-up, but it's in that toss-up realm. So that'll be interesting to see. If it comes down like that, people will be clutching their chest at the end, one way or the other.
What has to happen? I know we seem to talk about this on a weekly basis, but in games against quality to upper echelon to even elite type caliber, what has to happen tonight for Alabama to sort of get over this hump and get, I don't like to use the term signature with wins, but certainly what you could say an early in the tenure defining win for NATO's. What has to happen for Alabama tonight?
Yeah, they need to shoot the ball, and that doesn't mean, talking to Nate yesterday, and people look at the Kentucky game and say 4 for 21. Well, they didn't shoot it very well. Well, two things lead to that. I mean, you shoot sort of you are who you are as a team. There's some variations. You have good nights and bad nights, but Kentucky can really defend that thing. They've really got a lot of good athletes on the perimeter. Hagan's probably one of the best, along with Herb, one of the best defenders in the SEC. They can rotate guys in there. Calipari's got a deep bench. Guys can play 10 or 15 minutes. But I thought one of the problems, and this is maybe a little bit of a rough arena effect, or just the size of the moment. Guys have to not be afraid. Kyra tried 1 3-pointer at Kentucky. Reese had 2, shot 2, didn't make 1. Kyra shot 1. Shackelford shot 1. If you're a good shooter, and those guys are good shooters, don't miss one and then not try the next one if it's a good shot. Now, they could have done better. Kentucky was going to let them get the ball inside a little bit. Herb had a good game, had some he didn't finish at the rim, and there's some that Herb needed to kick out for a 3, and that 3 would have been there. So just need to be in more of a rhythm like that. Auburn's good defensively, and they can play. Auburn. What makes Auburn really fascinating to me is that they can play either way. They can have Wiley in the game, which they do for about 20 minutes a game, and depending on how the game's going, but he plays about, on average, half the game. And they're a traditional post team. Got a shot blocker at the rim, or they can go really small. They can go what's close to 5 guards or guards and wings, and they'll still have a core out there who's got good size, but is a wing like Herb. And so you've got to be prepared to play some different ways for them. And Alabama just needs to have some confidence and expect to see the shots go in. That's certainly what Auburn has. Certainly what they've done in this win streak, and it's been a win streak that's been over the course of 2 seasons, the end of last season and then their 15 games this year. This will be their toughest game so far. They've played one non-conference Power 5 against North Carolina State, and then their schedule they hadn't played really a top 40 team, and you can argue that Alabama's not a top 40 team, but I think Alabama will be their toughest game.
You kind of hit on it there. When you look around college basketball in general right now, we saw it last night in Clemson with that team taking down third-ranked Duke. It just seems more and more difficult this year to kind of evaluate wins in real time, because look at Ohio State a month ago and look at Ohio State today. I mean, I know you're an AP top 25 voter. You got to be putting in more work from that perspective week to week this year than perhaps any other time you've done this, Cecil.
Yeah, it's difficult, and you want to have a grasp. And even in the SEC, and people have conversations about the SEC we're not at the point yet where the schedule has evened out. LSU, and I'm not taking anything away from LSU. They're 4-0. They won buzzer beaters at home. Arkansas, Mississippi State playing at home. They won in overtime at Texas A&M. They're a couple of bounces of the ball away from being 1-3, and instead they're 4-0. And that's just some of that is that they have good players and so forth, but some of it is going to even out over the course of 18 games.
Let's talk some college football, Cecil, as we put a wrap on the 2019 season with LSU's 42-25 win over Clemson on Monday night in the College Football Playoff National Championship game. Give us your perspective, Cecil, on this LSU team, 15-0, a Heisman Trophy winner, multiple individual award winners on the national level, an offensive line that was honored as the best in college football in 2019. All the decorations that this team comes with, along with the team accomplishment. Where do you put this one among not just SEC great teams, but teams for all time in the sport?
Well, in terms of who they played, what they accomplished, what some of their margins of victory were, efficiency, not the greatest defensive team that ever played, but how could you be the greatest offensive team and the greatest defensive team? Not the most Cloudelaire is a really good running back, not the greatest running back, but in several areas they were as good as anybody's ever been, and can certainly make an argument for being the best team ever if those are the kind of arguments that you want to make. I guess any undefeated team has that argument somewhat. We were making the same argument this time last year because Clemson went undefeated. But I think given who they played and the level at which they performed, LSU is absolutely in that conversation.
Does the 2009 Alabama team, Cecil, in your opinion, continue to be undervalued in terms of what it accomplished? And maybe part of that because it was pre-college football playoff era. But when you look at how that season ended, Cecil, that was certainly the equivalent of a 2-game college football playoff with Florida and Texas down the stretch.
Sure, absolutely. Florida was Texas was really good too. So yeah, I'd certainly concede that point. You can make the argument that in 2008 and 2009, Alabama-Florida was the real national championship game. You can certainly make that argument for Alabama-Georgia in 2011 as well. So they certainly accomplished a lot. Beating Florida when Florida was number 1, undefeated. People were talking about Florida being that greatest team ever. At that point, going to Atlanta that week, people were talking about that. So it may get undervalued a little. They had the close win against Tennessee. Offenses didn't dominate the way that they do now. Very good offensive team. 25 years from now, people are going to look and say, well, that team had Julio Jones and Mark Ingram, and you may get more appreciation of that team 25 years down the road than you do now.
And defensively, you lost a 10-year NFL guy like Dante Hightower early in that season and still went on to accomplish.
To win them all.
Them all. I mean, so guys, you had those guys like Corey Reamer and Javier Arenas and some of the guys that were holdovers, I guess you could say, from the Saban era that, if we're being honest, Nick Saban in all likelihood never would have recruited. But I think that was the mastery of that team on Saban's part, that he melded really a couple of rosters and won all 14, Cecil.
He did. That was a tremendous run. Whatever the issues with the 2010 team were, that stretch from 2008 to 2012, that was a great, built around that 2008 recruiting class, and in the next couple, that was a great stretch. I want to say one thing on the championship game about Clemson, and this isn't a problem. I like Dabo, Clemson had an outstanding year. But what I'd like, I don't expect, not going to happen. But what I'd like is for Dabo, and I understand Dabo sticking up for his team and doing some politicking and so forth. But and when he says the media is thousands of different people with thousands of different perspectives. But you know, having taken this particular angle in the season, I'm just going to say this: the things that he complained about so much all year long, and gripes about, and brought up every week about how they were being treated and being disrespected, and the media this and the media that. You know, he was exactly right about Clemson. People who said those things. Here are the three basic points, and then I'll let it go. They would not have gone undefeated in the SEC. I think we have scoreboard proof of that.
Yeah.
You know, and that wasn't any one-point game. You know, Ed came off the throttle in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, nailed it down inside the 10 late. Yeah.
Nailed it down inside the 10. So they would not have gone undefeated in the SEC, which is what several people, me included, said. They got into the playoff. Not saying they didn't deserve to be in the playoff. Not saying they weren't one of the four best teams. But they got into the playoff by beating absolutely nobody better than Texas A&M. Absolutely nobody better than Texas A&M. And that's, you know, you can say, oh, polls are silly and polls are stupid. Look at the AP poll, the final AP poll.
You mean Wake Forest wasn't better than Texas A&M, Cecil? You know,
Virginia.
The Wake.
Yeah, so there is a difference in playing LSU, Auburn, Georgia, Florida, some combination of that, plus a little bit of Tennessee, a little bit of A&M. Than there is in what they went through to get to the playoff. Now, that's nobody's fault. That's the way it works out. But don't say that the media is disrespecting you by pointing that out. Because Clemson beat nobody in the regular season that was better than the 30th team in the country. And that's how they got in. Good for them. I can
Gonna do it next year, too.
Teams who would have done the same thing against the same schedule.
Going to do it next year, too.
And those are the only points they make. And I certainly look forward to the day that will never come, which is when Dabo gets up on a podium and says, you know what? Those guys who said that, they were right.
If you're Dabo, why do you care, though, Cecil? I mean, you got it made. Who cares?
I guess that sells so well with the fan base.
Yeah, free fuel, as he likes to call it, right?
I guess so. I can't imagine that that's what they needed to motivate.
Yeah, I mean.
But the people who dropped them because they were champions last year and didn't lose and had a close game against North Carolina and they got dropped, and people were saying that if they lost the game on that schedule, they didn't deserve to get in. If they had lost the game on that schedule, how would they deserve to be in any more than Oklahoma or Oregon? You know, that people were correct. Doesn't make people geniuses. Doesn't mean that people aren't wrong the next time. I'll be wrong about the next thing I say something about. But people were 100% correct in their analysis of Clemson, and I don't ever expect to hear Dabo say that, but it's the truth.
Well, and your league takes a little bit of a credibility hit, too, when the starting quarterback at Wake Forest, one of the, top 3 or 4 teams in the ACC and 2019, as soon as he can grad transfer out, he goes to Georgia. That's a little bit of a credibility hit.
Yeah, play for a championship. I mean, you saw him, and hey, credit to Louisville. They beat Mississippi State. You see what the situation was at Mississippi State this year. You know, but credit to them. But Virginia, if we're going to argue that Virginia is the second best team in that league, I didn't think Florida even looked particularly motivated.
No.
In beating Virginia.
They look South Beached.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
And still wasn't a close game.
No.
So it's
It was.
It's just different. But to sit here and have to listen to this, SEC homer and SEC bias, what was said about Clemson all year long was 100% accurate, and now we know.
Big picture wise, Cecil, which hire do you like the best for the program when we talk about Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss and Mike Leach at Mississippi State? Who has the higher ceiling there of the two?
That's a tough one, Travis. You know, that's that's seeing which. I mean, Mike Leach is, and I like Lane, and I think Lane could do some great things, and so I'm not getting critical of Lane. Mike Leach has won at some tough places to win.
He has.
You know, he has. Probably more so than Lane has, although Lane did a great job at Florida Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
But Mike Leach was successful at Texas Tech. He was successful at Washington State. And that's the kind of situation that relatively successful. Wasn't winning the league, but Texas Tech came close to winning the league one time. But was successful at those places that are not the traditional, big powerhouse programs in that conference. And he's done it twice. And so I think if he's motivated, then I think he's a heck of a hire.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's, if you're Mississippi State coming out of these last couple of years and you felt like Joe Moorhead wasn't going to be enough juice to move that program forward, I think you kind of helped yourself there with Mike Leach. As we let you go,
the one word that it's going to come down to for Mike Leach. One syllable. Let's collapse it into one syllable. Recruit. He's got to recruit.
Yeah. Yeah, he does.
He's got to recruit some guys.
Yeah. This isn't the SEC from even 10, 12 years ago, where everybody was still operating in a phone booth and you could come in with the air raid and sort of, off guard everybody. You got to have some dudes now.
Which Mike Leach was associated with, too, at Kentucky.
Sure. Tim Couch. Absolutely.
Yeah, everybody's spreading it out now.
And they've got dudes all across the field now.
And now there are players available. They can recruit those players. But getting the high end quarterback may not be easy, but he'll find a guy. And they need to play some defense. That was they were up and down defensively at Washington State. But I think if you look at the guy's resume, it's hard to argue that.
We're transitioning. You mentioned quarterback play and what it'll obviously mean to Mississippi State moving forward with Leach. But the two programs that all the eyeballs are going to be on this offseason when it comes to that position as much as any teams in college football, LSU and right here at Alabama. I talked about it earlier in the show. You got a couple of program vets in Miles Brennan, Mac Jones at Alabama, Brennan at LSU. What's your sort of expectation maybe for both those places as far as either or both of those guys actually being the guy once we get to early September?
I think Mac has a good shot. I really do. We'll see what happens in the spring. I would not be surprised if LSU's quarterback is somebody that's not currently, as of 11:46 on Wednesday, on the LSU roster. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
Yeah. Cecil,
it's worked for him once. There's nothing to keep him from going back to the transfer portal.
Absolutely. As we let you go here, if you see Najee Harris at lunch or anything today, how about giving us a heads up? All right, because we kind of been on
Najee. Clock ticking on Najee, which best of luck to him, whatever he decides. I don't think he can make a bad decision either way, and so good for him.
It'll be interesting too. You got Travis Etienne still has to make a decision at that position. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Could be that you're waiting to see what a couple other guys do. I guess as you said, you've got until Monday before you have to finalize that thing.
The one other thing, just talking about running backs just randomly, that I want to read the whole story on how Zach Evans signs with Georgia And then everybody just says, "Nah, that didn't happen. We forget that. Forget that. He signed, but we're going to pretend that never happened." What's going on with that?
That's been but that whole thing with the 5-star running back from Houston, Texas, Zach Evans, who Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M, just about you
LSU.
name it throughout the process, LSU, have all been intensely involved with at one time or another. Yeah, he apparently signs the paperwork with Georgia, and then it's like mutually agreed upon, I guess, that the two parties are going to go their separate ways. And Zach Evans is a running back who in the state championship game for North Shore High School was sent home from the Metroplex there, I guess, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for violating a team rule, and his team still went on to win the state championship out there. It's just been bizarre. And when I ask guys that cover that stuff a lot more intensely than I certainly do, or even pay attention to it, they don't even know what to tell me about Zach Evans. Cecil?
I'll be interested to see the 30 for 30.
You may not have to wait that long. It may be a 10 for 10.
If it's next year, that's cool. That's cool.
All right, Cecil, as always, my man, we appreciate the time here on Southern Fried Sports.
Yeah, sorry to be so long-winded.
No, it's always good, and we appreciate it. Take care, man.
Thanks.
There you go, Cecil Hurt of the Tuscaloosa News, Tidesports.com. More of Southern Fried Sports on a Wednesday, presented by Peterbrook Chocolatier on Tide 100.9 FM right after this.